Hi everybody, it's Andy and welcome again to my office in Modesto, California. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in California as well as New York. In this video, I'm going to go over a California estate law planning technique called a non-probate transfer. Specifically, I'm going to talk about a non-probate transfer called a pay-on-death designation. Those of you who have looked into this before, or if you look into it now after seeing this video, you might see the term Totten Trust. Totten is T-O-T-T-E-N. So that's the same thing as a pay-on-death designation. Years and years ago, there was a case in New York State, actually, involving a decedent named Totten, and that was the first case that basically came up with this idea of a Totten Trust. So, for better or worse, I guess his name was forever attached to the concept. So, but anyway, regardless of what term you use to call it, a Totten Trust normally is going to be used in a situation like this. So let's say that we have, grandma, and grandma is, say, 90 years old, and as a result of working hard her entire life and saving and investing, she has a considerable amount of money, let's say $200,000. And as she gets older, she might be kind of concerned, like, well, I'm about to pass away, or my days are numbered or something. How can I be sure that this money will go to all of you, that I can, help all of you? I don't want to lose it to taxes. I don't want the government to take it all. What can I do? Now, a lot of you who, perhaps have been in this situation before know that grandma can use a will or a trust or some combination of the two. But for a lot of reasons in reality, grandma or somebody in grandma's kind of situation may not. So, some examples that I've run into, for example, somebody in grandma's situation might think of themselves as not poor, but they also don't think of themselves as rich. And for whatever reason, a will or a trust is, something that connotes, that's something that a rich person has. Average people like me don't have those things, for no particular reason that I can discern. There's also a large cultural component of this also. So let's say that grandma grew up in another country, and even though she's lived in the US for years and years, she's not familiar with how the laws work here. She doesn't really understand, a thing like a will and a trust, like it's all typed up in English, she doesn't understand it and stuff. So maybe she kind of defaults to how things were done back in the home country. One default, I guess, that she could come up with would be that she would just add somebody to her account as a joint owner. So in my scenario, let's just pick on grandson. So let's say that grandma decides to add grandson to her bank account with the $200,000 in it as a joint owner. Now, what most likely what grandma should do is that when she does that, she'll tell grandson, okay, I'm adding you to the account, but this is only in case I pass away. While I'm still alive, this money is mine, but when I pass away, I'll leave whatever money there is to you, and I'm hoping that you use that to buy a house, pay for your education, take care of your children, etc., in a way that would have made me proud, let's say. So, as you can probably guess, there are a lot of situations in which that happens perfectly. Grandsons, are very responsible. They do exactly as grandma says, and everything's fine. Unfortunately, you can probably also guess that there are a lot of situations in which that does not happen. So there are situations, for example, in which grandson gets very kind of drunk on the money, and he decides to withdraw all the money right away, even when grandma's still alive. Now, can he do that? Can he withdraw all the money and basically wipe grandma out? And unfortunately, the answer is yes, because as a joint owner on the account, he has every ability to access that money, to withdraw that money that grandma has. I'm going to take that scenario and twist it around a little bit. So the thing is, let's say that instead of being, somebody who wants to withdraw the money, let's say that, grandson has a lot of debt, or that he owes a lot of people money, and that as he gets sued for not paying his debts, the creditors will look and go like, oh my God, there's an account here with his name on it, and it has $200,000 in it. Let's go ahead and take that so we can get our debts paid off. Now, in that case, grandma is also wiped out. All the money that she worked for, basically, grandson loses it, so to speak, to pay off his debts. Now, can that happen? And unfortunately, the same answer applies, yes, because grandson is a joint owner on the account. In other words, being a joint owner does not, it's not the same as what grandma intended. Grandma basically intended the money would be hers during life, but when she passes away, it goes to him. Now, in order to actually do something like that, you really need, or grandma, I guess, really should have done something called a non-probate transfer, specifically a pay on death designation. As you can probably guess from the name, it's not a real creative name. A pay on death designation basically is something like this. If we're using the example of a bank account, a lot of banks will have the capability of allowing an account holder to specify an alternate, a beneficiary. So the thing is, if you, the primary account holder, pass away, this person who is specified, or whom you have specified, will get the money automatically, whatever money is left in the account. It doesn't go through your will, it doesn't go through your trust, it doesn't need to get probated, it happens automatically. Now, if grandma had done that, would that have prevented grandson from withdrawing the money during her life? Yes. Would that have protected the money from, grandson's creditors seizing it, I guess, levying it, while grandma was still alive? Yes. The reason why I think a lot of people, in grandma's situation why they don't do that, not a lot of people know of, pay on death, they don't even know that that's a thing. So the thing is, if you have a 401k or an IRA, an insurance policy or something, you might, if you want to go through your paperwork for that, you most likely will see a beneficiary designation, a pay on death beneficiary, sometimes abbreviated POD. That's basically what I'm talking about. That's an extremely powerful tool that really can simplify your estate planning tremendously, and it also prevents you from falling into the situation, I guess, that grandma fell into, where she's still alive, and this person unintentionally or intentionally took all the money that she's worked for. So hopefully that made sense. And the whole point of this video was to basically educate all of you that pay on death beneficiary designation is a thing that bank accounts, that a lot of bank accounts have. Not every bank account, or not every bank rather, offers it. Some banks don't offer pay on death capability at all. Some banks offer it, but only on certain accounts. Other banks offer it on all accounts, and it's no big deal. Like, you go in, you ask for it, and you fill out a form, you sign it, and that's basically it. It takes 2 minutes to do. So the important thing, though, is that you have to go ask. And if you ask and it turns out your bank does not offer POD, pay on death capability, maybe you want to switch banks, maybe you want to come up with some alternate way. But the important point, though, is that pay on death is an option, and it's an option that can accomplish a lot of what most people, like grandma in my example, want to accomplish without exposing them to the risk, I guess. So hopefully that made sense. Go ahead and watch this video again if you like. Non-probate transfers are actually tremendously powerful. They can do a lot of stuff. They can make estate planning in general much easier, much smoother. Both the actual act of estate planning and then the actual act of administration once the person actually passes away. So like I said, hopefully that helped, and go ahead and like, subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.